Hey, what's up? It's Phoenix. You might be wondering, what is new on my bookshelf? Well, the Tale of Despereaux, written by Kate DiCamillo, is a new book on my bookshelf and one I recently read and that I hope to review today for your interest. This book is super interesting. It won the Newbery Award for children's literature, and I really enjoyed reading it. You might remember that the book that I read, Call It Courage, also won the Newbery Award. I encourage you to check out that book review if you haven't seen it yet. And I do want to review this book, and so without further ado, let's dive right in. Just a heads up, there will be spoilers ahead. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I needed something uplifting, something encouraging, something that would get me to think in a positive way, in a hopeful way, a little bit different from, for example, the 19th century Russian literature I've been reading, or the philosophy that I'm always engaging with, or even going into science and other dense, heavy books of literature, poetry, whatever it is. And I really enjoy books that challenge me, of course, which is why I read the heavier things. But I also like books that are a little bit more fun, and where the language is a little bit more scaled down a little bit, and where it focuses on narrative and story, where it pulls you in. And I feel like this book definitely captures that. This book is remarkable because it has drawings as well, in addition to the prose and the narrative being told. And I just really like it. Now, I don't know where to begin, I'll admit, because there's so much that I could analyze. But the reason why I find this book hopeful is because it's about a little mouse named Despereaux, who is a character who is cast out by his own family and by his own community and forced to go into the dungeon with the rats. Literally, quite literally a death sentence. And it's really interesting that this is his punishment because all he's doing is reading books instead of eating the pages of the books, which is what the other mice do, for having his eyes open, for liking light. Whatever the reason is, he's cast out and sent to die. But because it's a children's book, it's not so dark. There is hope for Despereaux. And I love that that is the theme. Because it is true that it is a little bit more predictable in some ways in the hero's journey when you have a character who manages to somehow overcome their adversity. But it's also a very empowering theme. And I think that it's one that is totally worth exploring in writing and literature. And I think that it is done really well in this book. Despereaux falls in love with the princess, and he is a knight, basically, in a metaphorical knight, which is the ideas that he's getting from all of these books that he's reading. And I love how this character is so likable, so sympathetic, so enjoyable to read about, because even though the book starts out dark, and it starts out where he's going to die, simply for being a little bit different, it ends in a very positive way. I don't want to spoil everything, but let's just say the ending makes a lot of sense and is very positive. And it's mostly because everybody, all of the characters who have gone through difficult things are able to have a reconciliation with each other and with life. And it definitely leads to a lot of beautiful themes that can be explored in our own minds and thought process. But I love that this book is so gentle-spirited. There are the threats of the rats, who are the villains, and there is some abuse that happens to some of the characters. So for instance, there's a character, I'm blanking on her name, but her name is Meg, I believe. Yes, Meg, and she's a girl, and it's really sad what happens because her father sells her basically to another individual who is going to keep her as a slave, servant girl, and this person is abusive and keeps hitting her on the head throughout the years, and so this individual basically becomes deaf. But what's remarkable is the way that this character is presented, so sympathetic and lovable, and you appreciate this character because of her struggle. She just wants to be a princess. That's all that she wants. And so it's powerful to think about this whole theme of this character who just wants to be appreciated and treated well and treated like a princess. And so when Meg actually does talk to the princess, Princess P is her name, it's remarkable to see how they get along with each other and how they help each other. And that even though there are rats with negative agendas and they're trying to cause a lot of chaos and get revenge, there's still nonetheless this beautiful element of these two characters who learn from each other and who gain a lot of insight from their experiences. And again, I don't want to spoil that either. I would like you to be able to explore it on your own, but there is a little bit of a spoiler anyway. And so, I like this book a lot. It made me cry a few times because I thought that even though it was a little bit sentimental, I mean, it is a kid's book, you know, it's not going into deep philosophical themes that you might find in other books, for instance, because that isn't the point. It still nonetheless captures a view that I think is very important in writing and literature, and mining the themes of childhood is something that I think makes this book really effective and enjoyable. And it is a short read. It is about 300 pages, but the chapters are pretty short, and there's a lot of drawings in it as well to accompany the images. But the point is, this book delves into a lot of valuable and important themes that is gained through the type of book that it is. So it's not so much that it's supposed to be this impossibly heavy book that focuses so much specifically and exclusively on a kind of exposition of ideas. For instance, I do think of Thomas Mann's book, The Magic Mountain, which I just recently reviewed. I encourage you to check that out. But that book was completely different, right? It was completely philosophical, it was completely heavy by way of the themes and by way of the characterization and even by the book itself, the length. But this is what I've learned throughout my reading of different books, is that different books do different things. And the reason why this book is so affecting to me is because of what it shows me about being like Despereaux and challenging things that seem so embedded, where, you know, there's that great quote by David Foster Wallace where there's these fish that are swimming, and this one fish says, "Hey, how's the water?" And the fish look at each other and say, "What the hell is water?" And the idea is that you become so desensitized and numb to the way that everything around you is that you lose your sense of curiosity. You forget that you're in water. You don't even know where you're at because you're not thinking attentively about the way that things are. You're just kind of going, and not that it's bad to go with the flow, for instance, but you're cruising so much on autopilot that you forget to notice the details around you. And I bring that up because that's what this book reminds me of, which is it does its own thing in a beautiful way. It definitely shows its own perspective, and it is so fascinating to think about this character Despereaux, who does question these things. He does question what is going on around him, and he doesn't even do it in a way that's like super rebellious or malicious, right? Like, he's just very curious about books because he can read. He likes light. He thinks the princess is beautiful. He has all of these things that he likes, and Despereaux is such a likable character. And I just love that detail, because it makes Despereaux someone that you can emulate, even though he is just a mouse with big ears, and a very small mouse, even for a mouse. But the idea is, he's just wonderful to read about his journey, and about the things that he does in this book. And I really love that theme, because I think it captures a lot of beautiful things. Honestly, I think that it captures this. The reason why it was so affecting to me is because that theme of trying to do the right thing, of seeing what's really going on around you, of loving and having love, of being kind and yet being brave. Like, all of these are really powerful themes, and I think it's easy to gloss over them when the world seems so brutal, and we forget what it was like to see through the eyes of a child. We forget what it was like to see things in this simple yet affecting and powerful way. And that is why I think this book is amazingly effective, because of how it captures that. I think that the theme of the light is also powerful, because the light light itself is very, it attracts us because it's beautiful and because it's illuminating. And so there's this character, this rat, who is punished for going up to the light because he's told not to leave the dungeon and go into the light. But I loved that theme because that's such a powerful theme of moving towards something, of gravitating towards something beautiful and something that gives you hope. And that metaphor of light is one thing that I think makes this book amazingly affecting and powerful, is thinking about how the light is such a powerful metaphor for illumination. How it shows us things and how it's so beautiful. And so that's one thing that I really want to emphasize with this book, is just the beauty involved in such wonderful virtues and themes as love, as compassion, as bravery, because you don't know what's going to happen to Despereaux. You don't know if he's going to make it. And it's a really interesting strategy that this writer implements, because this writer goes around back in time and coming from different perspectives and coming from different points of view to come together into this brave tale, forgive the pun, given that it is a mouse. This tale about this mouse named Despereaux, who never fit in, but who nonetheless did his best to bring beauty into the world. And I just love that theme. And so the book does end in a happy way, and I think that that was well done. And I think that this book overall is one that I would recommend. These themes definitely made me think. The book and the characters, and the character of Despereaux himself really gave me a sense of hope and meaning. It made me feel that even though sometimes life is tough, brutal, ugly, that there's still beauty to be found in our curiosity, in our desire to be brave and to explore, and I think that it's a powerful theme. So yeah, I definitely encourage you to read it. I'm super excited about being able to have read this book, and like I said, it is short, so I definitely encourage you to check it out. So yeah, I'm Phoenix, that's what was on my bookshelf. It was a new book, and I hope that you'll check it out. I encourage you to check out the other videos on my channel, and thank you for stopping by. I'm Phoenix, and I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.